So, Luke chapter 15, all about things that were lost. We're going to cut this down into 3 different sections, and we're going to start with the context, because this tells us really what Jesus was trying to say. So we read, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering round to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered." Can you just in your mind's eye picture that? They were muttering away to themselves. And they said, "This man, Jesus, welcomes sinners and eats with them." And who were these sinners? They were tax collectors and people unable to keep the law. In this time that we've been studying Luke, we've seen this increased tension between the Pharisees and the religious leaders and what Jesus came to do. And often they fell out over these regulations, very often over things to do with the Sabbath. The Pharisees had created something that they hoped would be helpful. They'd taken the 10 Commandments, keep the Sabbath day holy, and round it they had written an interpretation, a way of telling people how to keep the Sabbath day holy. So you can walk this far, but if you walk a bit further, then you are not keeping the Sabbath day holy. So you can see that this was done with good intentions. It was important that people kept the law, but this is so vague, isn't it? Don't take the Lord's name in vain. It's so vague. And they brought in these different, sometimes oral, but also written regulations to sort of ring fence that law, to enable people to know that they're not breaking the law by keeping all of these other regulations. The problem was that as time went on, they saw these regulations as the most important thing. So they forgot why it was created. They forgot the people that were out there. They forgot that the whole aim is to bring people and God together. And these regulations actually formed a barrier for people to get to God rather than enabling and helping them. A very large number of people in Jewish society at the time were unable to keep these regulations. The circumstances of their life meant that it just wasn't possible. And these people, the Pharisees had a name for, and they were called the people of the land. The people of the land. Let me read to you what some of the regulations, what some of the Pharisees had written down about these people of the land, people who can't keep all the regulations. "When a man is one of the people of the land, entrust no money to him, take no testimony from him, trust him with no secret, do not appoint him guardian of an orphan, do not make him custodian of charitable funds, do not accompany him on a journey." So don't even walk on a path alongside him, and certainly do not eat with them or invite them to your house. So these people who, for various reasons, were unable to keep not the law, but the regulations around it, the Pharisees said, we should have nothing to do with them, because if you do, then not only are they sinners, but that will rub off on them as well. So they will be sort of defiled by their association with them. So if we have that in mind, that the Pharisees believe that people who can't keep the law for whatever reason are people that you shouldn't even walk along a path with, no wonder they're muttering. And they're saying to themselves, why is Jesus welcoming sinners? Why is Jesus welcoming the people of the land and eating with them? And that's the context in which Jesus tells these three parables, two of which we're going to look at now. So the first parable. Jesus said, so speaking to these Pharisees, these muttering people, suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he does find it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbours together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." Shepherds at the time were, in more than one way, people of the land. They obviously worked on the land. That's where the sheep were. They were out in the countryside, but they were also people of the land in that they couldn't keep the regulations that the Pharisees had made. For example, they couldn't keep the Sabbath holy. They had to work. If they didn't work on the Sabbath, in would come the wolves every seventh day and get the sheep. They couldn't keep all the regulations of going to the temple at the time that they're supposed to, the ceremonial washing, just to give you a few examples. So they are people who are these sinners that you should have nothing to do with for fear that their sinfulness is going to rub off on you. Hence why the Pharisees said they're people of the land. Jesus takes a shepherd as the picture and says, supposing 99 sheep are there and one is lost. In those days, looking after sheep or owning sheep was often a sort of community affair. So a village might have a flock of sheep, so that the village might have the sheep and then appoint several people to be the shepherds to look after them. So this picture of one being lost and being found and brought back to the village, you can see that there would be a big celebration. There would be great rejoicing because, in a sense, the whole village is caught up with it. The village each villager has got a stake in that sheep that has been lost. The Pharisees said these are people who have, by their own choices, cut themselves off from God. But Jesus says if there are 99, important 99, but here is one, and that shepherd will go looking. And physically they went looking. There was not a large amount of land. There was some land in Palestine at the time that was good for sheep, but a large amount wasn't. You know, there were ravines, there were mountains, there were rivers, there were dangerous places for sheep. So this is something that people understood. One gets lost and off they go. And then to the second parable. This time, a woman has lost a coin. Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and her neighbours together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin." So she's got 10 of these coins. She loses one. It's important to find it. This could have economic implications. It's not worth an enormous amount, but people didn't have much money. So they couldn't afford just to lose one particular coin. In addition to that, it's possible that we've got here a picture of a necklace that women had when they were married, that they would wear around their necks sometimes, which would have 10 coins on, and they wore that when they were married. So it was something that had meaning. It wasn't just the economic value, it was also something that had meaning. So when one of them gets lost, she goes hunting. Perhaps for economic reasons, perhaps also for the emotional meaning behind it. And looking for something, it's true the houses wouldn't have been particularly big, but they would have been very dark. There might have been a window, only one window at the most, and very small, not a large amount of light, a lot of dirt in the houses, and she goes sweeping as she goes looking until she finds this particular coin. And when she does, she calls everybody in and says, "Look, I found it, I found it." Jesus is saying to the Pharisees, the people that you reject, the people that you say are separated from God because they can't keep the regulations, are the people that are special to God. That one sheep, that one coin, that sheep coin person is particularly special to God. But the parable takes us just a bit further than that, because it's not so much that a sheep is lost and then appears, or a coin is lost and then suddenly appears. These things are lost because they are looked for. The shepherd goes out looking and spends all night, if necessary, up the hills, down the mountains, in the rain, in the sun, whatever it might be, takes the initiative and goes looking for that sheep. And the woman doesn't say, oh, I seem to have lost a coin, maybe it will turn up, in the wash, as it were. She goes looking, she sets everything aside, she lights the lamp, she gets the broom, and she goes looking until she finds it. So Jesus isn't just saying to the Pharisees, the people who you have pushed to one side are important to God. He is saying more than that. He is saying they are the very people that God is proactively searching for. God is that shepherd, and interestingly, we say that quite comfortably, don't we? God is also that woman searching for the coin. Not just waiting, I wonder if the next sheep will turn up. I wonder if the coin will turn up. God takes the initiative and goes looking for the sheep and the coin who is lost. And so for us today, whenever we feel lost, and it may be that there are people in church today who have been followers of Jesus Christ for decades, and there may be people who have been followers of Jesus Christ for 2 days. Whichever of those, doesn't matter if we're old or if we're young, there will be times when we feel lost. Feels just a bit like that this week, doesn't it? As a nation, so many changes, to change a government, to change the Prime Minister, and then for not just a monarch, but, such a special monarch to die. It's a bit of a wobbly moment, isn't it? Both as a nation, as communities, and also I think for people individually. I've spoken to people who have said, this brings back when this person died or when that person died. And I don't know why I was so upset when the Queen died, but I think it's because this happened to me a long time ago. And there will also be times when we feel lost from God, when we feel we know God is there, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like God is a long way away. These parables tell us that when we feel like that, God isn't just sitting there saying, I'll just wait till that person comes back. I'll just wait till the next morning and see what happens then. God is on our case. God is after us. God is searching for us. God is looking out for us. And when we are over here and thinking, where's God? What's happening to my world? What's going on in my life? Is God around? God is on his way. God is there looking for us and searching for us. And if that is a comfort to us, if that's an encouragement to us, there's another flip of the coin as well. Because around us are people who are also feeling lost, feeling alone, feeling distant from their community, their families, and from God. God is after them. But how is God going to get in touch? Well, there are many, many ways God does that, but often it's through us. So just as we can take comfort from the fact that God is searching day and night, in the rain, in the dark, in the dust, in the sun, for us when we feel lost, so he is sending us to search on his behalf, to be proactive, looking for people who are lost, who are insecure and wondering where God is. I want to show you just a very short little clip. This is from a sort of Christian group, a bit more than that really, based in London, who do a lot of thinking about how to empower and how to equip Christians. And this is from the beginning of one of their courses, suggesting to us that we as Christians might feel small, might feel small in numbers, but actually the impact that we can have as we go out proactively to find those who are lost, those who are feeling weak, can be very great. Okay, so we are a tiny, tiny number, aren't we? And maybe getting smaller. And yet, we are here on a Sunday, we gather strength from each other, and then we have to go. And all those people that we rub up against, I wonder, which of them can you identify as being lost, as being wobbling at the moment, as being disorientated by whatever's going on in their lives? And it's our job, just as God seeks us, to seek in God's name those people that we know.